Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. And you are in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And as usual, this is radio the way it should be heard. Now, if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will try to get to your letters or your statements. I have to try to vet them as much as possible, and sometimes I don't know who you are, and unfortunately we do have some people who are posing to be someone that they're not. Let's just put it that way. So we have to try to be careful. We're not perfect as far as vetting is concerned, but we are well aware of the tricks of people who try to discredit Mr. Fuller and his work. So we try to be aware, and sometimes we may let something slip through, not on purpose, but, hey, life does happen. Mr. Fuller is the author of the book that you should get to help you along. It is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism and white supremacy, as he has in parentheses. Mr. Fuller is on the line, and Mr. Fuller, as we normally start out our session as we open it up, how are you today?
I'm still learning.
Yes, sir. You're still learning. I have let's see here, from the line here, a person by the name of, I guess Rama or Rama said this. Mr. Fuller has stated in his publication, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, white supremacy, on page 20, that he thinks there are three basic types of people in the known universe, they being number one, white people, number two, non-white people, and three, white supremacist racists. I disagree. I would say there are only two types, white people and non-white people. Mr. Fuller has stated on a previous Talktainment show that the only reason to belong to a race is to practice racism. My questions then are, number one, do white people and white supremacists both belong to the white race? Are white people admitting to and or practicing racism whenever they declare themselves to be white? What do you call a person operating within the system of white supremacy who would otherwise be viewed as white but does not declare themselves as such or accept a classification?
You call people by the names that they want to be called. In other words, if a person says, I'm a white person, then you say, okay, you're a white person. But now you make your own judgment about whether that person is white or not, simply because the white supremacists sometimes pretend that they are non-white.
Mm-hmm.
they'll just go out in the sun for a little while. I mean, or put on some type of chemicals. They're magicians, so they know how to do all sorts of things. And so you just have to observe them very closely and see a main thing you look for, not so much what the person is saying, because people say all sorts of things. Black people say all sorts of things because people, period, say things all the time that are either true or not true. All people do that. So what you do is just observe people. I think it was Confucius who said, people really can't hide themselves. All you have to do is just watch them. Now, he said that in other terms, but basically that was it. They said, people are not a great big mystery. You don't have to be, trying to scratch your heads all the time about people. You just watch them. I mean, and what the way they go about doing things and the things that they do will tell you who they are. And it's a lot to be said for that.
Okay.
I didn't invent that. I mean, I guess people down through the ages have said that.
Okay. Justin, I'm not going to mention his last name, asked this. Hello, Mr. Bobby. Can you ask Mr. Fuller, what is the codified response or reaction if a white person calls you the N-word? Thank you in advance.
The codified reaction is, what is a, and you use the N-word, because that's what they call you. You go into the question mode. You don't resist the term, because the term might fit you, okay? So, you don't know what the person is calling you. You want to know what it is the person is calling you and what they're calling you that name for. So then you say, what is that name that you just called me? What does that mean? So you want the meaning of the words, first of all.
So in other words, you start off, as you say, by start asking questions.
Always. All problems in the universe are solved through the process of questions and answers. We got to keep remembering that.
Yes.
Questions and answers. That'll take you right where you need to go.
Okay.
That's why people go to school. They go to school with questions so that they come out of the school with answers. They go to church with questions so that they come out of the church with answers.
With answers.
So when the person says, you are a N, all right, then you go into the question mode. What is an N? And then the person is supposed to, since they are calling you this name, they're supposed to be able to tell you what that is, what that means. I mean in depth.
In depth.
All right? Yes, exactly what it means.
So was it okay for President Obama to use it the other day when he was explaining something?
It's okay for him to use it. I use it. I have it in my word guide. I mean, it's a word. It's a word. A word is nothing but a tool.
Okay.
And it depends on what you use the tool to do.
Okay.
Like any other tool, like a hammer or a saw.
Okay.
Or a razor blade. I mean, they're tools.
Okay.
A tire iron. They're tools. And all you want to know is, what is the tool for?
What is the tool for?
What is it supposed to accomplish? Okay, so a person calls you a name. Okay, all right, we got that. That's what I am, I guess, according to you. Okay, the person doing the name calling. So then you say, what? The second thing is, are you calling me that? And you want to make sure that the person is calling you that. And then the third thing is, okay, now that I got your answers as to what it is, and that you're calling me that, then what is it that you are going to do as a result with this, whatever it is that you call me? How are you going to interact with me in all of the 9 areas of activity?
Okay.
Since I am this, whatever you call me. See, it all comes down to not so much what a person says. People say all kinds of things. You want to know what the person is going to do. That's all I want to know about what any person is. I mean, if I see a strange creature that doesn't even look like a person coming toward me, I want to know what that creature, whatever it is, I mean, the creature from the planet Krypton, I just want to know what it's going to do in its interaction with me.
Okay.
And if it's in the form of a person, regardless of who that person is, I want to know what the person is going to do in all 9 areas of activity. What is their mission?
Okay. All righty. You are listening. This is for you, Galen. We are listening. You are listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, and that is radio the way it should be heard. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will get back to the Gmails with a good question from Tony. But right now, I'm going to go to the phone lines, and that line number one. Line number one, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
First of all, thank you for taking my call. Mr. Fuller, the 4 basic things that the white supremacists are doing to cause the most confusion, have they expanded that in outside of those 4 basic things, white sacrifice, and I can't remember the other 3, but have they expanded on those down through the years? Thank you very much, and I'll listen for the answer off the air.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Uh-huh.
No, these are 6 things that they do for confusion. As far as I know, it's 6. And major things. They might do a number of small things, that I haven't recognized to cause confusion. But it's 6 basic things. Now, this is not in the textbook. I've been talking about it for years, and I intend to put it in an updated, expanded version of the textbook. But it's racial classification confusion. Now, you got a little bit more of that going on now with some recent incident of a white lady saying that she was black. That's racial classification confusion.
Okay.
All right. Second, racial dislocation confusion. Now, they have had this all the time, meaning keep those squatters moving. In other words, if people are non-white, keep them moving. Why? They have found out from experiments, from experience, that if you keep people moving all the time, everything from people going across the desert trying to find a way to get some food, some clothing, some shelter, some jobs, or people trying to cross an ocean and their babies falling into the water and whatnot and turning over. That's dislocated people. They are not stable. They're trying to find a place where they can go, where no one is trying to harm them.
Right. Okay.
Right. Also, dislocation means you have your things sitting out on the sidewalk.
Okay.
All right. Now, you might have done that about 3 years before then. See, the white supremacists, when it comes to black people, keep those black people moving.
People moving. What's the third thing?
The third thing is racial population tailoring confusion. In other words, don't let the population in any particular place get too big. It becomes difficult to handle.
So you tailor it, huh?
Yeah, so you tailor that population. You have all kinds of ways. You spread disease.
Okay.
All right? That's one way of getting rid of some people.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
Ebola
or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Or you just hand out guns to 50% of the population, and you don't give the other 50% any guns.
Okay.
Or you give them all guns and let them go at each other. So you make sure that you tailor their minds so that they're mad at each other. They're gangsters and all like that. I want to be a gangster.
Right.
Okay, now when you get to be a gangster and get your credentials, who are you going to gangster against?
Yeah, street cred.
Well, the black people. That's all I ever see you do.
Yeah.
All right? So, big deal. That's all a part of the racist scheme.
Number 4?
Okay? Number 4 is racial sexual confusion.
Wow.
So now you got trans this and trans that and trans that. Then you mix that gender confusion with trans-racial confusion. Now you got the package that you was aiming for in the beginning.
Yeah.
See what I mean? They started off with transgender, but I've been telling people for years, oh, yeah, that looks like that's mundane. That's, we all have people who are, what you call bisexual or trisexual. Even among black people, we all got them in our family if we are not those ourselves, okay? So we say, well, that's no big deal, but you got to think about what the racists intend to do with that. So they mix the transgender with the transracial.
Wow.
See, now they got maximum confusion, which is what they want.
Right.
Okay? Now, you go to number 5, racial showcasing confusion.
What's that?
That's putting a few black people, all black faces that used to be to the back, we want them down front now. Okay? Put black faces down front on a whole bunch of stuff that the white supremacists are going to be doing in the back. But you have a black face up front. Now, that makes black people get mad at the black people who are up front.
Right.
But it's the white supremacists who are back behind
who
the curtain.
Orchestrating the whole thing, yeah.
Yes.
Puppet master.
So that causes confusion, and it also causes black people to start attacking each other, and the racists are back behind the wall just cracking their sides laughing. Say, we got them again. I mean, these people are the dumbest creatures you'll ever see because they can't catch on to nothing. All right?
Okay,
then you go to number 6. Racial white sacrifice confusion.
White sacrifice?
Yes. Meaning, when you drive down the street and you look out your car window, you see some white people on park benches. You see some white people who are out there barefooted in the wintertime. And you see some white people walking around talking to themselves and whatnot and don't have anything. I mean, and you say, oh, racism is over because look, if you got white people who are poor, you got white people that don't have anything, you got white people who are suffering, just like black people. So it's not racism. It must be something else. No, the white supremacists operate on a percentage basis. They know that, and they even they put in position in the path of danger a certain segment of white people. They'll just pick out white people, so to speak, and just throw them under the bus. This is to distract non-white people to thinking that racism doesn't exist.
Yes.
But they do it on a percentage basis. See, for every 10,000 black people that they kill, they'll kill 10 white people. And say, see, it's not about race. I mean, people just out here killing people. That's all it is. See, but it's always the black people who are the greatest number of people suffering. Okay. That's the way they operate.
That's the way they operate. Okay, so before we move on, let's see here. We got number 1 is racial classification, racial dislocation, racial population Taylor, racial sexual confusion, racial showcasing, and racial white sacrifice.
White sacrifice confusion.
Okay.
All forms of confusion. Because, see, when you confuse people, you got them.
Got them. Okay. All right. Hopefully, I can't wait till you make that addition to the book. Okay. You want me to do another promo? I did. I'll do it again, though. You're listening to the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here exclusively on TalkTapeItRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. You can give me a call at 1-877-932-9766 or Gmail me, and I will try to get to. I doubt if I get to them today because I'm loaded with Gmails, but Gmail me anyway at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and then at some point I will get to it, maybe on another show, and read it. Okay, let's go to line number 2. Line number 2, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can be heard. What is your question?
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Fuller. I hope both of you doing well on this fine day. My question stems from last week when a brother had called in later in the show asking about separation, and Mr. Fuller said that you really couldn't separate, and the only thing you could do is find the person who's hitting you over your head or poisoning your water, which I thought was a fine answer. My only question stems from that is on the other show I had, somebody had asked him, who is a white supremacist? And he said, I don't know. Well, how do you stop somebody from doing what they're doing when you don't know who's doing it?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Mr. Fuller?
In the textbook for victims of white supremacy, the edition, the word guide, and I'll explain that further in the expanded edition, and that is, you don't know who the white supremacists are, but if a person is classified as white and is functioning as white, then you are duty-bound to suspect that person could be a white supremacist. That's a duty. Why? Because you don't have a master list. You don't have a master list of who is a racist and who is not. So anyone who is able, underline, able to be a white supremacist probably is one in a system of white supremacy. Somebody's got to be a racist in a racist system.
But not all white people are racist.
Not all white people are racist.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why. Just fundamentals. Always give the reason why. A brand new baby, a baby born into the world. So you have to join a race. Racism is something you have to join. It's something you have to deliberately practice. And you have to know your colors. So a newborn white baby doesn't know one color from another. So that's not a racist. You have no reason to suspect that that white baby is going to be harmful based on color. No, I mean, that's not logical. See, follow the logic of the universe. Logic came with the universe. We have to be a logical people. I mean, razor sharp logical. So, that baby is not a racist suspect. Okay, now, let's say that there is a senile white person. Well, by senile, that's a kind of a broad term, but say the white person now has reached the age of 106 or something like that, and the white person is being wheeled down the hall in a wheelchair in a hospital. The person doesn't know a spoon from a fork, not to say anything about the difference between black and white. That person is not a racist, even though that person may have proclaimed him or herself to be the head of the Ku Klux Klan at one time. But that person, when you look at the person, you see the person is helpless. So you can't be helpless, and you can't, and to the extent that you don't know one color from another, and be a racist. To be a racist, you have to know your colors. That's an absolute. And so just because the person is white doesn't say that the person is a racist. Racism is something you have to deliberately do. All right? So therefore, that person is not a racist suspect.
Okay.
But any white person who is able to be, any person classified as white and functioning as white who is able to be a racist is a racist suspect. Suspected by whom? By anybody who wants to suspect them. And that's and Neely Fuller. That's an automatic duty, according to the code.
Okay.
I have to expect it.
You have to expect it.
Okay. Right.
You're listening to The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkDavidRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. 1-877-932-9766 is the number you can call to get in contact with the show. Or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will try to get to the Gmails. Before we take the next caller, in your book, the title and where we can get that from?
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. That's the basic title of the book. There's another title, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of white supremacy. If you don't perceive yourself as being a victim of racism, either directly or indirectly, in any area of activity, one or more, then the book is not for you. Some people say that, well, I'm not a victim of white supremacy. I've never been affected by racism. And all these lunatics run around here talking about racism. I don't pay any attention to them. I just go and do my thing, and I get over fine. Well, this book is not for you. It's for people who are victims of white supremacy.
Okay. All right. So you can get it at producejustice.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Go to producejustice.com.
Okay.
And the method for ordering is there.
Okay. A note from Femi, if I am pronouncing it correctly. He said, or they say, I hope this finds you well. My question is related to Mr. Fuller's book. I have purchased both books, and I live in London, England. I just want to clarify that the book is good to be delivered to the UK. I spent a little over $100 including delivery, but just want to make sure all is cool for international deliveries. I guess they're asking that question. Thanks in advance.
Yes, I've been trying to bring the price down and find out how to get this international delivery, at a cheaper price. And anybody who can email, this station, you maybe, Mr. Bobby, and give you some information on the procedure for doing all like that, I would really appreciate it.
Okay, well, then you and I will talk off air.
I'm trying to get the price down for the book itself. I'm trying to find out all the information I need to get this information from my viewpoint out.
Okay.
Because people don't have a lot of money.
Right.
And, and I don't have a lot of money to try to keep the operation going.
Okay.
So the more that I can reduce the price, the better for everybody.
Okay, I'll tell you what, then I will call you later, off air, and then we can discuss that.
Yeah, anybody who sends in some information to you or whatever.
Okay.
Or sends information to me directly, even on the air. I'd appreciate it. How do you get information is power, somebody said on a TV station.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and we always seeking information about how to make things better.
Okay. Let's go to line number 3. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. How are you, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
I'm well, thank you. Mr. Fuller, it's my honor, and I do look forward to the next edition of your book. My question is, if white supremacists are in fact superior to non-whites in the 9 areas of activity, why is it unjust for white supremacists to dominate non-whites in those 9 areas of activity?
I missed that.
Okay,
go
ahead.
Answer that question.
Yeah, go ahead. Repeat that. Mm-hmm.
If white supremacists are in fact superior to non-whites in the 9 areas of activity, why is it unjust for white supremacists to dominate non-whites in those 9 areas of activity?
Because it's evil. Well, white supremacy is a system. And what does white supremacy really mean? It just doesn't mean somebody being in charge. No one should care about who's in charge of anything if the person is not mistreating people. White supremacy is about mistreating people based on what? Based on the color in the skin of those people who are being mistreated. That's all it is. It's a form of mistreatment. There are all kinds of mistreatment in the world, but that's the greatest form of mistreatment. That's why it's supreme, because it's the greatest form of mistreatment. If you want to look for mistreatment of the people anywhere on the planet, most people are being mistreated based on color. That's what it is. If it's just 2 people on Earth, one person might mistreat another person just because the person is jealous or envious or something. Yeah. There's all kinds of ways to mistreat people for all kinds of reasons. But this business about racism is about mistreating people based on color.
Okay. Dear, before we go, because we are up against a break, did you have another quick question?
Well, I was just getting to how can an inferior people, which are non-white, ever logically expect to gain equality with the superior people, which are white supremacists?
Good question.
Well, I never said that black people are inferior. I said that black people are subjects to a supreme people. Supreme just means you're able to do what you want to do and get away with it. That's all that is. Supreme just means you're the best at what you do. And they're the best when it comes to mistreating people based on color. That's all that means. That's what that supreme means. Sometimes people say that I'm saying that white people are superior genetically to black people. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the white supremacists have taken a political position that is supreme to the political position that black people have taken, which is mostly just showing off to each other.
Oh, good clarification. Thank you, dear. TalkTainmentRadio.com. You can check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 Wednesday and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. We go where you go, radio the way it should be heard. Coming up next, we got some questions from Tony and then more of your phone calls. More next on TalkTainmentRadio.com. goodwill.com.
TalkTainmentRadio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. TalkTainmentRadio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite TalkTainmentRadio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is TalkTainmentRadio.com.
LaGlory Soul Food Cafe, a taste of Southern classic, located at 3350 Allegheny Avenue in Columbus, Ohio. They've got everything you need. The famous LaGlory burger, chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, walleye, perch, and whiting, and fish dinners, all Southern style food.
Oh boy, what good eating!
LaGlory Soul Food Cafe, a taste of Southern classic, located at 3350 Allegheny Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. Be sure to tell them that All in Our Family sent you, and you will receive an extra side dish with each meal. LaGlory Soul Food Cafe, a taste of Southern classic, located at 3350 Allegheny Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. For carry-out, call 614-237-5844. Get the menu at LaGlory'sCafe.com. Open 7 days a week.
For the best eating in town.
Goodwill is a global social services enterprise and the leading nonprofit provider of job training programs and career services in the United States and Canada. To pay for its program, Goodwill sells donated clothes and other household items in more than 2,700 stores and online at shopgoodwill.com. Goodwill uses the revenue earned from these sales to fund job training, employment placement services, and other community programs. The goal of the campaign is to increase goods donations to Goodwill, inspire an emotional connection to the Goodwill brand, and to elevate preference for Goodwill.
We can give you a new heart.
We can help you walk again.
We can perform brain surgery.
We can treat a sore throat.
We can bring life into the world.
We can work so many miracles. But the one thing we cannot do is read your mind.
When you communicate with your doctor,
when you ask us more questions,
you reduce your risk of suffering a medical mistake.
Tens of thousands of lives are lost every year due to medical mistakes.
The healthcare community is working on it, but you can help.
Please, open up. Ask more questions.
What are the side effects?
When should I expect my test results?
Will this medication interact with my other prescriptions?
We can't answer if you don't ask.
Help reduce your risk.
Questions are the answer.
Learn the 10 questions you must ask. Visit www.ahrq.gov. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and the Ad Council.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him opening his own clothing store at the age of 18? 1 in 138,000. Excited to be a part of pop culture, he packed for the big city. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. I encourage you to learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
Brought to you by Autism Speaks, the Ad Council, and TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
Okay, welcome back to a second slice of the action here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. You are listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and you can get in contact with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and chances are I am not going to get to it today, but I will make every effort to get to it. We want to give you a quote from Mr. Fuller. This comes in, and if you have the book, you can actually see it in the back. It's about the writer, author of this book. The first thing he says, that racism has done more to promote non-justice than any other social material system known to have been produced or supported by the people of the known universe. Yeah, wow. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot. All righty, let's see. Before we go to the phone call, we have a question from, Tony. He says, Mr. Fuller, do you feel that some of the recent white supremacist attacks could be hoaxes, complete with actors and media accomplices so they can elicit certain desired responses? The reason I ask is that I have questions about the Walter Scott video, which didn't show gun smoke or blood. After the South Carolina church murders, church service was held a few days later, even though it was a crime scene. Mr. Fuller?
Here again, if you've probably noticed before, sometimes I don't pick up on the essence of a question. So I'm trying to get the essence of that question.
Basically, the person, because I just deleted it, basically was asking, do you feel that the recent activities that have been going on in South Carolina in particular have been hoaxes with actors or people filled with media accomplices and so forth? And then he said he referenced the Walter Scott video, which he indicated there wasn't any smoke there, any blood, and that the church service that was held after the 9 people were murdered was a crime scene.
Well, I guess the people who were murdered are dead. I mean, these are real people. So I don't know about a hoax. So what would be the hoax? A white person walks in, and presumably a white supremacist, and that's the type of thing that a white supremacist would do in the system of white supremacy, is walk in and kill a bunch of black people. So that's right in your face. So I don't know where the hoax is.
Well, I've been listening to a few talk shows, and one of the things that has come up, and I'm still researching it, I have my people on it that are researching it also, is that they were speaking about Mr. Roof and how he looked, and it was indicated to me that it's very possible that he could be a suspect Manchurian candidate program. They said, look at his eyes, look at his action. And as I look back at the video, it's a possibility that could happen. And also, is it a possibility that this whole thing was used as a diversion to keep you from knowing about TPP, the Trans-Pacific Program, I think it is, and other trade agreements that have been going on, which the senators and even Hillary Clinton was against? These are possibilities that are things that have been thrown out. And I don't know. I'm still, investigating for as much as I know, but it is a question that maybe needs to be addressed, because I certainly don't think it can be answered.
Oh, all things are possible in the system of white supremacy. They know how to drug people, robotize people, and all this type of stuff. Give people certain assignments. The white supremacists know everything that there is to do in being a white supremacist, and they are constantly refining their techniques. This is why they have been in business so long.
Yes.
They are master scientists.
Okay.
Political scientists, physical scientists, any kind of scientist you want to name, when it comes to manipulating people.
Manipulating, yes.
Yes, I mean,
Right.
so they know everything there is to know about white supremacy. That's what makes them supreme.
Mm-hmm. And
they are super brains.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I listened to it, it made me realize that he is suspected that this type of activity, and notice I said the word suspected, that this kind of activity could have happened because the usual suspects are present. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1, you are on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Oh, can you hear me, Bobby?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I have a comment for Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, you were 100% correct based on something that you've been saying over the past year when you said that white supremacy is the strongest religion on the planet, and maybe a lot of these black ministers should have been paying attention to what you said, because we just seen evidence of this last week when this white supremacist walked into this black church and shot up 9 people, and basically what the white supremacists were saying is, hey, my God can allow me to go into your church and shoot you and kill you, and there's nothing that your God is going to do about it. And you've been saying that over the last year or so, with white supremacy is the strongest religion on the earth.
I've been saying that for 40 years, and people don't look at it as a religion. It's the strongest religion that has ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
And it is proven that everybody bows down to what the white supremacists dictate. I don't care what their religion is if they have color in their skin. They'll run up and say that I'm a black Jew, that I'm a black Christian, and I got a black church, and I'm the pastor and whatnot, and I'm the leader, and I'm this, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm a Muslim, I'm this. The white supremacist says, take a look at me, boy. Take a look at me, gal. Because that's what I call you. You are nothing.
You're nothing.
When you come before me, you are nothing. I am your God. And if you don't think that I am, prove it. Because I can prove that I'm your God in about 2 seconds, and you know it. I feed you, I clothe you, I have you eaten out of my hand. I tell you even where you can have your church.
Wow.
You ain't going to have a church unless I say you got one. I don't care who you call on. And I have proven it. Now, if you prove you got anything going for you, then beat me.
Wow.
That will be your proof. If you got anything backing you up, prove it.
You are listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameAtRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. You can call or get in contact with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Don't forget to get the book. The book is called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. And you can get that by going to producejustice.com. And there is an additional word guide that is also for purchase. And you can get it even overseas, and Mr. Fuller is working on reducing the cost. Another quote from Mr. Fuller: no major problem that exists between people of the known universe can be eliminated until racism is eliminated. Caller number 2, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
I was going to say, now, I watch your videos and Dr. Cress Welson's videos on the Internet over and over again. And I have both your books and I have her book, and I read them over and over again. I'm very impressed with both of you, Mr. Fuller. I'm impressed the way you tell us what racism is and how it functions. I'm impressed with her work. She tells us why white people would want to set up these global-type systems and have trouble moving on. So I'm very impressed with both of you. Now, my question to you is, I see in one of your books you list an address and phone number where we can contact you. Is that number and address still good?
Yes, most people don't notice that. That was kind of inadvertently put in there, but it's still good.
Good, because I'm still reading your books, and I'm still learning. I read this over and over and over again.
Good.
And I'm sure at some date I'm going to make out a list of questions and contact you to see if you can answer them.
Well, sometimes I don't have time to, I get so many questions from so many people, and so many people want to call me, and sometimes when I have a chance, I do talk to people on an individual level, hopefully not too long, right? But I try to get people to come to this program because this is the only regular program that I have, talktainmentradio.com, and put their questions in there. Okay. And the main thing that I try to do with the entire book and the philosophy of the book is everything. That's what that United Independent means. Everything is directed to the individual person. I'm trying to get people to think on their own and not start looking to Neely Fuller as being their leader, because I'm not their leader. I always tell people your leader should be what came with the universe, and that is logic.
Logic.
See, the creator of the universe put a thing in called logic. Now, what is logic? Logic is studying cause and effect. Fire will burn. Water is wet. All we have to do is pay attention to cause and effect. Babies do that. I mean, they learn it, by trial and error, which is the way we learn everything. So we don't pay attention to that because we have been trained just to pay attention to what the white supremacists tell us to say and do.
Okay.
In all areas of activity. No, we should tap in, listen to what they say, but also think on your own. And don't follow anybody, including Neely Fuller, because he makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody. Thank you. Thank you for your call, caller. As we move on here, Neely Fuller writes, or has written, the fear, frustration, malice, and confusion that is caused by racism retards or prevents all constructive activity between the people of the known universe. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTeamRadio.com, and that is radio the way it should be heard. You can contact the show by calling 1-877-932-9766, and you can get in contact with Mr. Fuller, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will try to get to your questions, probably not today because we are loaded. And also, you need to get a copy of the book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. You can go to producejustice.com, and you can get that, and I'm sure you'll be happy. Going to Andrew writes this, and Andrew, I'm only going to read one of your questions this week. He says to Mr. Fuller, what are your thoughts and feelings, Mr. Fuller, about being quoted and having your work cited for both constructive and non-constructive purposes?
I tell people, stand by your work. That's in the word guide. That's a word that I added because I saw what was happening, and I figured the white supremacists were going to do it, but I didn't think that they would make the move so soon. Yeah, but they're definitely working. And they're working to do what? What they do best, cause confusion. So whenever you have sources that are kind of mixed up with, things that Neely Fuller says, and then it's mixed with something that somebody else says, and you don't know who the somebody else is or what they're about or whether they're white or non-white, now you got what? What the white supremacists want. Confusion. That's why I say Neely Fuller's book has to be Neely Fuller's book. And people out here who are doing writing, stay away from repeating in your book what Neely Fuller says unless you say that Neely Fuller said it. And if Mark Twain said it, say that Mark Twain said it. If Richard Wright said it, say that Richard Wright said it. If the head of the Ku Klux Klan said it, say that the head of the Ku Klux Klan made this statement. See, cite what it is where you got this.
Right.
And if you put something in a book, say that you said it. Don't try to pretend that somebody else said it. and then mix it up with somebody else and all like that, that causes what? Confusion. And the white supremacists like it. I don't care what your intentions are. If everybody does not stand by his or her work, you have to take that as a sign. This is a white supremacist operation.
Okay.
Neely Fuller will put his name on what he does. And if I say, and as a person that I quote all the time, Mark Twain, but I say Mark Twain said this. Don't go around saying that Neely Fuller said this. No, you can say Neely Fuller said that Mark Twain said this, and the only reason Neely Fuller said that Mark Twain said it is because somebody told Neely Fuller that Mark Twain said it, because Neely Fuller never talked to Mark Twain.
Okay, Mr. Fuller. Mary writes, after the South Carolina massacre, why are black victims so forgiving of racist terrorists who probably don't even want forgiveness? Is this "I forgive you" sincere or a way to escape the reality of racism and white supremacy? And the reason I ask is blacks are so easily to forgive a white supremacist but dislikes his own black brother or sister. Comment?
Okay, the answer is, according to the code, depending on what your religion requires you to do. That's what I mean by people going to have to stop talking their religion and start practicing it. They got to be real. What does your religion require you to do if you got one?
If you got one.
All right.
Okay.
Now, I have a religion. My religion requires me, according to the code, to say, yes, you can be forgiven, but I'm not qualified to do that. The only person who is qualified to forgive you is your creator, and if you want to say your creator is a person, and or the person that you killed. And there's only one way that you can get forgiveness from that person, and that is to go where they went.
Wow. All righty. Let's go to line number three. Line number 3. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Thank you for taking my call, brother. I don't have a question, but when I was listening, I heard 2 questions that came into you. I want to answer them quickly and make a brief, quick comment.
It's got to be quick. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I do believe that the South Carolina assassinations are real, but they do stage many events, like the shooting in Waco with the bikers. I think that attack was staged.
Okay.
And the attack on the police station in Texas, I think that was staged.
All right.
And I do not believe 30 white children were murdered in Sandy Hook. Now, I do believe what Mr. Fuller said, that everybody do have to come to the white supremacist system sooner or later. I saw that being in Vietnam. After Vietnam won the war, they still had to bow down to the white supremacist system and say, hey, boss, can I come in and play now? Now, let me say this very quickly. Beautiful people have been exterminated for thousands of years. It's a evil human phenomenon that continues to happen time and time again. Now it's black people's turn in America to be exterminated, and that's where we are. They are setting us up for extermination.
Okay.
And for the extermination to happen, brother, they have to create an atmosphere of chaos, anarchy, things gone crazy. That is the context for the extermination to take place. Because after we exterminate it, they still got to manage the world. So they would be able to tell the world, look, we didn't know what was happening. The things got out of control. This is what they are setting up with all this crazy violence.
Okay, thank you for your call, brother. Thank you. Thank you. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but thank you for your call. You could be right on that. I don't know. Let's go to line number 1. Go ahead. You are on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead,
Hello,
please.
how are you doing? I have a quick statement.
It's got to be quick because we're up against the time. Go ahead.
Okay, what I want to say is that since we had a black president, hate and evil has stepped up. What I want to ask Brother Fuller is about the white skin privilege, because even that child that was born, he's going to have white skin privilege, And even the Jews that changed their names and passed for white have white skin, period. What about that?
Okay.
Because they have that.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Well, you're talking about religion now when you say, I think you mentioned Jews. So therefore, I'll just say what I put in the code. There's so much confusion about religion and who is a Christian and who's a Muslim. So lots of debate now about who is a qualified Muslim, what real Islam is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this has also been about the religion of what we call Judaism. Who is a Jew? Who's not a Jew? So I always say, let the person who is a Jew identify him or herself as a Jew and then explain what that means when it comes to people who are not Jews in all 9 areas of activity, particularly what does that have to do with black people?
Okay.
See what I mean?
Yes, sir. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to line number 2. Line number 2, what is your question for Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.?
On Straight Talk Live last Saturday, they said quite simply that the Second Seminar, Donnella Mark Bright said quite simply that we need the nation bill. But Dr. Neely Fuller said quite simply that, we need to sit down and have a conversation, and that the conversation should be, constructive conversation should be about white supremacy with white people.
Okay,
right?
now Straight Talk Live is heard on Saturdays in Columbus, Ohio, right? Mm-hmm.
Ruth, the dude that committed the atrocity, was taken to Ferguson before he was taken to the jail. You know what I'm saying?
You're breaking up. You're breaking up, brother. You're breaking up.
Thought on sitting down.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, as much as we could get because he was breaking up, do you understand what he was saying that was on Straight Talk Live here in Columbus, Ohio on Saturday mornings?
I heard.
And you were on that program this past Saturday.
Yes, sir. I heard the term nation bill. I don't understand what that means.
Okay.
I really don't. I hear people talking about building a nation. We're in a system of white supremacy. Now, the system of white supremacy is a prison system, and everybody classified as non-white is in the prison system. So therefore, when you have prisoners of war saying we got to build a nation within a system of white supremacy, I don't understand how that's done. So somebody has to explain that to me. Sometimes people have said, well, we need more Wall Streets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I'm a prisoner of war, how do I build a Wall Street in a prison where I am a prisoner of war? Somebody have to show me how you do that. And at the same time, not be subject to the warden.
You're right, exactly.
See, I have repeatedly said you have to get rid of the entire prison, period. You can't, there's no way to set up a little playground in the prison and say that you're independent. That's a contradiction. I mean, I've never seen anybody do that. So somebody have to show me, how do you actually do that? How do you become independent of the warden in the warden's prison?
One of the things that you have quoted here, you said, the people who have the ability to eliminate racism do not have the will to do so, and the people who have the will to do so do not have the ability. Quickly, what do you mean?
That means that we have already proven that. I have the will, I guess you would call it the will, to eliminate racism. I talk about it all the time.
All the time.
I don't have the ability. Why? Because I haven't done it. That proves that I don't have the ability. All right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's prima facie evidence. I don't have the ability to do what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get it.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, callers. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And we, again, welcome all of your calls. You've been listening to TalkTeam@radio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard, the greatest radio in the entire world. The compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We hope to see you next week. And Mr. Fuller, I'll call you sometime today off here, and we can talk about what we discussed. Again, thank you, callers, for calling, and we look forward to it next week. Send me your calls and letters, and if I didn't get to them, I'll try to get to them next week. Thank you.
Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.